The amount of, crying at the kitchen table, such a classic universal homework experience. It was like, what is 2 plus 2? I'm making 3. I don't making you. The kid's making me. But I just remember kind of like disassociating. Like, just looking out the window. So content. Like, I would look out that window for 7 hours if I didn't have to do my homework. Oh, sweet baby Jesus, welcome back to Press Any Button to Continue. My name is Keith and I'm joined by my 4K TV PlayStation 5 loving retro companion Nisha. Do you remember all the way back in season 1 we used to talk about SNESs and CRTs? Good times. Speaking of good times, remember when we weren't bombarded by the anxiety of 15 social media apps, 12 ways people can message you, and 69 always ready to go open porn tabs? Well, PapTC remembers. Today we want to take you back to a time where you swear you could hear the summer. A time where sprinklers were going off, pigeons were cooing, and you sat under the tree playing your Game Boy. A time where all you had to do in the car was see which raindrop would beat each other in a race down the window, or just blissfully rocking out to the Guitar Hero jams while your parents were getting a divorce in the other room. That's right, we are remembering a very special moment, as we were the last generation to know what it was like not to have the internet. Come reminisce with us today on Press Any Button to Continue. We are back, baby. Nisha, how are you feeling?
Baby, you still got it. You absolutely
third time recording it so far today. Getting it on in, smooth on in. That's how you started season 6. You record an intro 3 times and here we are.
Yeah. Life before the internet, man, was a beautiful thing. Life before the internet was nice and chill. Do you remember just sitting down on the couch, right, and being bored and having nothing to do and looking out the window
Sweet
and like being
on.
like, well, I make another cup of tea, or I used to drink a lot of them sachet cappuccinos. Well, I make another sachet cappuccino. Make another cheese
the
toast.
fanciest sachet cappuccino. How old were you?
Far from it, sir. Far from it.
Sachets of cappuccinos. You were a very old child.
Yeah, like, do you remember just being like bored, just waking up? This is how summer was for me, right? When I was a child, I remember playing Final Fantasy X, okay? And I remember I played it so late that I fell asleep, right? I got stuck on a boss. It was like a blob in the forest, right? And what I didn't know was you had to alternate what elements you attacked the boss with. But I fell asleep playing it. I woke up the next day. The computer was still on. The TV was still on. I was just like lying down on the bed. I just woke up and started playing it again.
Do you know what's interesting? What's interesting about you saying that is, you know that time between Christmas and New Year's where no one knows what day it is? It's like that, but like 3 whole months of summer. So obviously this episode is kind of like the art of being bored combined with the summers of the 90s, but obviously with the preface of the fact that like either we didn't have the internet or it was a time where it just wasn't really readily available. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously we're living in a world now, as I said in the intro, where it's like you have 10,000 emails and you have like 12,000 notifications and you're like, just hit my nose off the microphone. And you're like, oh, do you know, I can go down to the detail of like, looking up like
everything.
Busty goth mommy milkers with like just a tinge of just like, but specifically wearing the red lacy knee-high stockings. You have everything now you want, literally in the palm of your hand. We're back in the day, all you had was the palm of your hand, That's all you had, man. That's all you had, you know what I mean?
It's never let me down. Let me down.
Well, Pamela, she's always been there for you, do you know what I mean? She's always been there for you. But do you remember wild?
Here's something, right, that I think is funny. So, if you're in like a WhatsApp group, right? I have a WhatsApp group with my like old friends, right? That I've had, like my friends that I've literally been friends with since I was like a kid, yeah. And I'm very lucky that we're still a very, very close group. But like, I enjoy like asking a question from time to time. I know I could Google that question, but it's nice to have the, just the human interaction and the guessing. I don't like to Google everything straight away. Sometimes I'll just leave it up to, maybe it was this or maybe it was that. Because I don't like to have all the answers.
Think about it, Nisha. Think about it, my beautiful love child. We would never have retro rumors if the internet existed. We would never have the playground stories. You wouldn't have the schoolyard stories. None of these episodes We wouldn't have extravision without the internet. If the internet, what I'm trying to say is like it only could exist really pre-internet times, and then everyone could watch stuff online.
Imagine trying to explain to the youth of today, when you wanted a movie, you'd have to wait for it to come out in video. Then you'd have to go down to the video shop, like actively, like drive, get your ma or dad to drive you down or walk down, and it mightn't even be there. And you might see the box, bring it up and say, no, it's all gone. And then you'd have to wait the next week, try and rent the video. You'd only have it for like one night or 2 nights. Like that shit just doesn't fly with the youth of today. You know what I mean?
Same with
like,
music.
Yeah, true. And like, have you heard this album? Oh, I can't get it anywhere. Like, I remember I couldn't get Grand Theft Auto San Andreas anywhere. And like the frustration and the fucking yearning to play it. But it also played into the excitement and the build up and the fucking, how hard that game hits you.
The really interesting thing about the internet is, and why it's so bad for you, I guess, is because you have instant gratification. And I guess the reality is delayed gratification is how you learn a lot of happiness. And how you learn a lot of patience, and how you learn a lot of like tenacity. And I'm not to say that there is different ways of working that out, but instant gratification is often like, you want to sometimes be able to like delay gratification. Like, I need to do this piece of work and then I'll have my coffee, rather than like, oh geez, fucking, how did Pornhub end up open on my phone? Whoops.
Yeah.
So I know. Or it's just like, back in my day, we used to have to learn to play an instrument to hear music. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's well, I feel very lucky that we did get to live during that time though, of just things were just a little bit easier. Now I know that also plays in the part of, we were young, didn't have a job, didn't have to pay rent, might not have kids, that kind of thing. You're a lot less responsibilities, but it was also just, it felt like there was just less going on. Do you know what I mean? And it's because you didn't know everything.
Yeah, we were never made to be connected to everything all at once. We weren't supposed to know about the news of everyone and everything, a lot of it being negative. Our brains were never designed to be connected to the matrix.
True. Like, do you remember just like knocking in for your friends? Did you do that? Now, I know you're like knocking in for your friends. See, I grew up in like a housing estate, right, where all the houses were clumped very tightly together. Yeah. I know you're from being at your house that it's a little bit different. But would you just, like, did your friends live in walking distance? Would you just knock down to them, like walk down to their house, knock on the door?
See, not really, because like when I went to school, like my Richard, classic Preston A. Bun to continue. Richard would live like maybe like a 25-minute walk away or something. But it wasn't like we could just like knock on the door next door. Now I did move out of this house for a bit, like my original family house, when it was being renovated, and I moved into this other place. And there was this kid next door, and he was a few years younger than me, but he used to always come over, like, will you play football with me or something, or we just played the PlayStation or whatever. So that used to kind of just be like, pop over, be like, hello, what's going on, kind of thing. So they kind of have experience of it, but not with like my friends growing up, do you know?
Right. Well, like, that's literally what I did. So you just be like, someone would knock on the door, or you just decide to leave your house at one point. Say during the summer, you just be like, right, I'm just going to knock over to John here, I'm going to knock over to Kieran or Steve or whatever friend it was, and be like, you coming out? And be like, yeah, come on, let's come on out and play, or let's just walk to the shop. And that's like, you had no plan. You're just like, come on, we knock in for John here, or knock in for Gary. It's like, there was no plan. That's what we did. So one person would go over and knock on the other person's door, and they'd either answer the door, or their ma would say, like, come on, he's upstairs playing the computer, go on in. And you'd go in, you'd sit in their house for a while, and then you'd be like, do you want to walk to the shop, or do you want to knock in for another person?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I got to a point where there was like 6 years knocking on the door, and like the parent would open the door and be like, is so-and-so coming out? And you'd be like, they'd just call them and say, your friends are at the door, are you going outside to play? And they'd be like, nah, fuck off, or I'll be down in a minute. That was it. And then we just sit in the wall. Like, there was certain walls in my neighbourhood that were good to sit on. Like, that's a good wall to sit on. And like, that's literally, I'm not even messing, man, that's as exciting as it was. You'd be like, there was my brother's friend Skippy, his wall was great to sit on. You'd go and sit on Skippy's wall.
Just had what?
And I'm not even messing.
Did it vibrate or what? Like, what the fuck was so good about it?
I don't. This is the thing, though, man. It had good feng shui. There was good energy around the walls. You know what I mean?
It had good what, sorry, Nisha? Can you say that again for me, please?
Is it called feng shui? I don't know. Feng shui.
Close enough.
I don't know. It's just something nice energy. But that's what we did. And then you'd walk to the shop or you'd walk down to the beach. We used to go and sit on the cliff. This is how stupid we were. We sat at the edge of a cliff with a 20, 30 foot drop. We just sat there at the edge of it. No joke. No, thankfully, nobody was ever harmed during the sitting at the edge of the cliff. But
there is that really nice sense of community that comes with that I guess like it can exist, but it's far less likely to exist because it's like, as I said, we are the last generation to know having both, like not having it and having it. Where like, you know, I see like, you know, my friend's niece and nephew and stuff, they're 18 now or whatever. Like, don't get me wrong, they go out and they'll do whatever, like it's fine, but it's just slightly different. I mean, and we do the same thing now too. It's not putting any blame on that, but it's just like,
no.
You know, it's just like they're just chatting to each other on their phones, or when they're with each other, they're on their phones. But like the art of being bored with pre-internet, I guess really realistically now, it's impossible to be bored now. Like you can be bored in certain ways, but not in the same way where your brain goes into full on like, yeah, I'm happy to just sit in a wall. Do you know what I mean? Like people are going to reach for things quicker. Like I think it's crazy if you look at our parents' generation. The fact that more than likely, if they wanted to hear a song they wanted, they just had to fucking wait till it came on the radio. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't have the album or the pocket change, you're like, geez, I'll just listen to the radio for 5 hours to hope I hear that one song. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah. That was so... Like, do you remember ringing in, like, a request to the radio? Do you ever say, let's play this song for Keith? Or whatever, you know? Can you please play Angels by Robbie Williams for Keith on Cork FM?
Oh my God, Better Man. Go see it if you haven't seen it, by the way. It's like a 10 out of 10 movie.
What's that?
It's the Robbie Williams biopic where he's a monkey.
Oh, really?
Have you seen the trailer for it? Oh, it's very good.
No.
Excellent movie. It's sitting at like 91 on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment. Tomatoes. Nice. Sitting 91 on Tomatoes.
But man, like that's what I used to do during the summer. A lot of my summer was sometimes we'd go down swimming. Like I walked like 20-minute walk from the beach. Right, we were right beside the beach. We'd walk down swimming. We'd walk to the shop all the time. Like we'd literally just walk up to the shop, get like a roll, and walk down and just sit in the field, play football. The lads play football.
You're kind of present when you're doing that, you know. You feel like you're existing, and it's funny because it's like you thinking, you know, you might hear like that's such a thing you wouldn't remember, but you remember it very clearly.
Oh, very clearly, man.
You know?
Very clearly. Like such good times, just walking around, hanging out with friends, but literally just sitting there, like just talking. That's all. We just talked. That's what we were doing. We were talking. We're sitting down, sitting on a wall, sitting on a step, talking. Like we didn't have our phones. Weren't. Like there was a bit of like playing with Game Boys from time to time, but it was very, very rare.
Yeah, you were just out there existing in each other's company. That's all you were doing, and you were comfortable existing. And obviously at that age too, when you have that crew, like you'll never have that feeling back. Do you know what I mean? That's the last time you've experienced that in your life, more than likely. Do you know what I mean? Where it's
true.
Because, like, you know, you grow up, and there's also a couple of things. There's the lack of responsibilities when you're a kid, if you're lucky. There's, you know, there's pre-internet, so, you know, there's all stories. It's very communal. There's no distraction. And there is the life before the internet is like mixing our schoolyard stories, our art of being bored, retro rentals. Like, it's mixing almost the whole podcast of what this podcast almost is in a way, even though it comes through the internet, which is the irony of it. But, like, for me growing up, it was sleepovers. Like, that's what we could do, because since we didn't live near each other, it goes into another topic of ours, it was all about the sleepover. So it was like, you used to just go over, and at most we had was like, we had like the original Xbox. Halo 2 wasn't out, so this is back to split screen. There was no online 360. There was no online multiplayer in gaming. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it existed on the PC a little bit when I was younger, because you're a little bit older than me, but we didn't have access to it. So for all intents and purposes, it was the same thing beforehand. So it was like, I remember, like, we'd be just playing the original Halo. Like, the dinner would be on, and it's so funny because my friend's mom sometimes she'd be like making, like, you know, asparagus fucking spinach balls of like fucking pasta, and I'd be like, I'd be like, I'm not fucking eating that shit, man. And I just remember you used to go to the park, would wander around, like literally, like I remember me and my friend, Classic Richard, like we used to just go walking in graveyards. We just used to enjoy. I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but we used to just love. We used to walk in a graveyard, and there was a timer down in Bandon, and I was staying with Richard's grandparents. And this is a famous story from back in the day that his mom would talk about, is where they thought we were lost, we were missing. It was during the time as well where like this was in the news happening over summer, you know, kids going missing or whatever. And so we were in Bandon, and we were walking through a graveyard chatting, and we were just chatting. I can't remember what we were chatting about. It was a sunny day. I remember how the sun felt. I remember the heat of it. And I remember just being the independence of the two of us, just having a nice time. And I've always loved graveyards since, just to like chill in. I know that sounds crazy, but like just walking around there, it's just weirdly like, oh, everyone's dead. You know, like this is a nice place to hang with your thoughts. And I remember, so we were gone for ages, and I don't think we had mobile phones. So they were freaking out at home, and his granddad was waiting. The whole dinner was being held up, but the biggest drama was like his granddad was going to miss his potatoes. So it's like, because we were gone so long, so he was going to miss his potatoes. They were driving around everywhere us, and they got in, and the big thing was like, you made your grandfather miss his potatoes. You know, he never missed the potatoes. If that doesn't say, like, that was only what, 25 years ago.
That's
like,
fucking
to
crazy.
think, not even 20 years ago, probably, no, a bit more than 20, but like to think that was life only that little bit time ago, where we didn't have a phone,
beautiful.
We were walking around, and the biggest worry was his grandfather missing his taters.
Just missing his potatoes. Man, that's a beautiful thing. It really is, to me anyway. Like I yearn for that. Now it's like, if I want any sort of peace, I have to put my phone on airplane mode and just not look at it for like 3 days.
I know.
To get any sort of a break from everything, do you know what I mean? Whereas then it's like, you're like yearning for something to do. You're like, I'm just going to draw a picture, or I'm going to like tap on the table, and like you're saying, you're going to look at like raindrops. Like, do you remember just looking out the window? You just like,
I remember
I was looking out the window.
So content being bored when I had to do my homework or something, and I'd just be like, I hated homework. We actually should do an episode on homework actually, but I hated homework. And like, I used to pretend to be asleep, and my mom was like a hound with it. She'd be like, it's 5 o'clock. Like, when Dragon Ball ended, I had to go do my homework. So I was like, no, like the ending song of Dragon Ball. I was like, please. So sometimes she'd be like sitting on the couch with me, and she'd be kind of falling asleep, and I used to like rub her hand to make her fall asleep. So I'd be like, shh. Do you know what I mean? Because like, and I'll never forget like the amount of, you know, crying at the kitchen table, such a classic universal like, homework experience. It was like, what is 2 + 2? I look at 3. I don't fucking do it. You kids making money. But I just remember kind of like disassociating. Like, just looking out the window, so content. Like, I would look out that window for 7 hours if I didn't have to do my homework. Do you know what I mean? I would just stare. I'd be like, no, I just won't move. Or Nisha, do you remember this? Do you remember when, I don't know if you had a bedtime, but I did.
Right.
Or if you were,
so,
or you were let run wild. Okay, it shows.
I think so.
So I remember there used to be like, you know, say your bedtime was 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever age you were, you know, would get later. Yeah. I remember watching like 2.5 Men or something. I think I probably had to go to bed at like 9:30 or something like that. But I remember when the show ended, so like my dad would be sitting on one chair, my mum would be sitting on another in the living room, and I would turn into a stone. I would turn into a piece of the furniture just so they wouldn't remember what time my bedtime was. Sometimes you would get a whole extra TV show out of it if you just pretended to just... You would just sink into you would just become part of the room. Camouflage, just so like, because you knew if you made one move or one fart, you'd be fucking going straight up to bed. So you were just hoping they forgot you existed. That was a classic.
I remember something very similar, and it was, I remember me and my brother Aiden would be, we'd had like bunk beds in our bedroom, and I remember when we were in primary school, if, say for instance, if for some reason my mum slept in, right, the two of us knew that if it got past 9 o'clock, right, we weren't going to school that day, we were getting a day off. And the amount of times that we and Aiden would wake up and we'd look over at the clock or whatever was in our fucking room to tell us what time it is.
Pre-internet, all you had was a clock.
And the panic of just lying there, and sometimes I'd roll over and look at him, and he'd be like, "Fucking lie down."
Yeah.
And it was like, just say nothing. And we'd like you'd turn into a rock. We weren't there. We were. There was nothing. You'd stop breathing, and we were like just hoping it hit 9 o'clock. And literally, as soon as it hit 9 o'clock, we just creep out of the bed and go downstairs, make our fucking super sugary cereal, put on some Turtles or whatever was on the telly. And we knew we were having a day off school. But even if it was like 10 to 9 and all you'd hear is, fucking hell, get up.
Yeah.
And we'd be like, bollocks.
It's the same, man. I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but like we had this maths teacher who scared the fucking shit out of us. Like, was just pure like everyone would have to have a go of doing like a maths question, like reading it out, like, you know what I mean? It was intense.
Yeah.
She'd scream at you, she'd make you stand up, sit down, close the door, open the door. Like, it was just fucking, she'd slam the books on the table when she came in. She was fucking scary. She was a good teacher, like, but scary. And man, when she should never be late, man. I'm not joking. Even if she was 30 seconds late, the whole class would be just like, it was like, who wants to be a millionaire? Put that music on in the background. Do you know that? We'll be sitting there sweating. A bead of sweat pouring down you. It's like 45 seconds goes by, and you're like, and like the tension was like you could fucking cut it with a butter knife. It was just so intense, and like the second then a substitute teacher comes in, it would erupt. Like, literally, the substitute teacher, I'd say, nearly was beaten the head off of, like, would be dragged out of the room, stripped and thrown down a hill or something. Do you know, like, it was just the excitement of it, man. Of just,
man.
That's all we lived for. And then once you come in, the disappointment in your heart, man.
Yeah.
The disappointment. Oh, it was killer.
Yeah, it was. I remember that as well, because, you know, when you're standing outside waiting for class, or standing outside class waiting to go in, everyone would be acting the bollocks, but then there would get a point, like say if it went 3-4 minutes past the start time and no teacher would arrive, and everyone would be like, what, wait, are they not in? This is a free class, this is free, what, and then even all the like the mad messers would calm down, like, wait, are they not? And then they'd turn the corner and you'd be like, for fuck's sake.
No. It was so bad, man. I was just thinking, I was being reminded of a story there, speaking of pre-internet times. I was at a party recently, and Simon, aka the Fear Merchant, he was reminding me of a story of when we were in school, and this one guy, he was like, you know, I'd say like, you know, unfortunately when you're kids there's a hierarchy of coolness, and let's say he wasn't the top, do you know what I mean? But I used to go out and I think he used to go out and have cigarettes and smokes with the lads, do you know what I mean? I'll never forget the time that we there was like everyone like lined up, and when he came back from his cigarette, everyone was clapping him. He was like, "Go on, you fucking legend, fucking smoking, you bastard!" You know, he was just like, just immortals. And then there was another time. Did I get fucking thrown in a bin before? It's like everyone's like, oh, it was so good, man. Though, oh my god! And then I remember one time a guy went through a wall. You know, you just have this like, you have like a Rocky montage of those hilarious school moments all in one. Plastic sheet fell over, people being thrown through a wall. The parts where people go, "Oh shit, it went too far."
Yeah. Oh, there's so many, man. There's so many. Oh, I'm trying to think of, like, I can remember when I was about 16, and this was when the internet just came around as well. And what we used to do was, I was in a band at the time, and we'd go into the computer class and just print out, like, I'm talking hundreds of pages of guitar tabs from Ultimate Guitar, whatever it was. Like, I'm talking like a fucking, like, you know, you get a packet of paper. It's like,
it was the whole ream.
1,000 sheets, or like, I'm talking fucking loads of them. And I can remember an awful lot of my days of just as the pre-internet days turned into the internet days, and it was all in that computer room, and the excitement and the buzz and getting Nokia ringtones and stuff like that. And I can remember that transition, which is mad, because I can remember then going home and having no computer and being like,
and having your what, sorry?
The addiction.
Cut off there a
and
little
having
bit.
no computer.
Yeah.
And it was like, or no internet, should I say. And I'd be like, oh fuck, I need to look up this guitar. And I could remember it creeping in, that little like nugget of knowledge of, I can just look this up. Do you know what I mean? And I can remember the disconnect of going home and then being like, I'll have to wait until tomorrow. Like waiting, that's something you don't typically have to do for things now.
But that's the
like
thing. It's the
Amazon.
instant gratification. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's kind of, and again, like it's kind of going to TV shows too, and how you watch Dragon Ball, and you decided you seasoned it yourself by ordering the physical copies and waiting for it to arrive and created like a little buzz around it. And now it's just a case of like anything you want to watch. Like again, like imagine living, like we lived in a world where when I was in school, if I wanted to watch Dragon Ball, I had to set up the VHS machine to be timed to go off to record that episode. And god damn it, back in the day, sometimes channels were late. A lot. Sometimes they'd be like 15, 20 minutes outside the schedule. And I'd get the last 10 minutes of an episode and 20 minutes of Home and Away. And I'd be like, you bastards! Bastards!
Yeah, man. Like, I remember we had videos of like Friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like a couple of videos of Friends and a couple of videos of recorded Simpsons episodes, and like the one video of Friends would have 4 episodes on it, and I'm telling you, I've seen the Thanksgiving episode and whatever like hundreds of times, and the episode of the Simpsons where they go to the beach and Lisa becomes cool hundreds of times, and the episode where Homer goes touring with the bands and he's the cannonball guy. Like, do you remember that? Like, you know, you didn't have the choice of I could watch anything. The struggle of you trying to record Dragon Ball at the same time, but then it was like, well, I have now this one episode of Dragon Ball and I'm gonna watch it 600,000 times until the next one was coming on. And another big thing, about TV, right, is I never had like the TV guide. I didn't have like satellite TV.
You didn't have Sky Digital, You had the 2 channels.
I didn't know. Yeah, I think we had 10, right?
Oh, you probably had a bit of the dodgy black box, so fucking...
So, no, it was like whatever was free. Whatever was free, right? So
yeah,
it was
dodgy
like
black
1
box,
and 2.
it's always free.
So it was whatever channels were free, but I never knew what was going to come on. I had to learn the schedule. I knew... Power Rangers was on at 8 o'clock in the morning on Sky, and I knew that Angel used to be on Thursday nights at about like 10, I think it was. But because I remember a lot of the time, what I'd do is, say my mum would make me dinner, I'd go into the sitting room and I'd turn the telly on, and whatever was on was on.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what I was watching.
Or the
and
worst
I remember
was
a lot of times
sick days where whatever was on was absolutely on. Like you're watching like
garbage.
baby shows for the first 3 hours of the morning.
Fucking Arthur and shit like that.
Oh, Arthur's a creep, man. Arthur should be fucking arrested for years. He's a naughty bastard.
I remember a lot of the times going in and being real excited when Animaniacs would be on. I don't know why. It was around like 6ish. The Batman animated TV show. But Goosebumps. I remember Goosebumps being on.
Would you please play the Goosebumps theme, please? I fucking love it.
Do you know what I used to love, right? I used to always hope for whenever I was watching a TV show, because they weren't being shown in chronological order. It was episode 1 of a TV show. I always wanted to see episode 1 of TV shows.
But
I don't know why it was, because I never saw it.
Growing up, no one will ever understand this if you were like not 30. Is that like we just had to watch a series completely out of order always? Like you never.
It was just an episode. You didn't know what season.
It was one episode and the show was off the TV. Do you know what's even more fucking crazy, Nisha? TV channels used to have to be managed by a host and a presenter. It used to be like, had to be every show, like every channel had someone who's like, and now Home and Away. And now it's, and they probably were like a radio DJ. Now it's just like a robot does it.
Fuck. Yeah. Jeez, I never thought about that, yeah. On like the children's channel, it was called Nickelodeon. It used to be called TCC.
Yeah,
they had,
that was like the teenage version of Nickelodeon, was it?
No, I think it was pre-Nickelodeon.
Oh.
But I remember watching like Funhouse. Do you remember Funhouse?
Not really.
With the blonde-haired guy, Pat Sharp.
No, I don't think so.
Oh man, it was like an obstacle course thing, and they'd have to go around and collect tokens and they'd win prizes. It was like a red team versus the yellow team. And then I was watching Art Attack.
Art Attack was great.
With Neil Buchanan.
Do you know what?
Then it was Zap.
Zap?
Yeah, it was a random like comic book thing.
Did he have big spiky Dragon Ball hair? Black? No.
Maybe
not.
Don't know.
Do you know what was also crazy? That one channel would turn into another channel. That like after 5 o'clock,
my
Nickelodeon
God,
would become
yeah.
something else.
Oh my God. Yes, it did. After like 7 o'clock, Nickelodeon was like Universal or Paramount or some
it was
shit
like
that.
Busty Babes or something.
Oh my
You'd just
God,
be sitting
yeah.
there watching the Rugrats, and then it's like, next on TV, got Tommy Mommy Milkers. It's like, what the fuck?
Oh my God, man! What Nickelodeon turned into something?
See,
and it was actually a really
it was trouble.
good.
It was trouble.
Was it?
There was
Yeah.
a channel. Well, there was a channel called Trouble, which was like part of Nickelodeon, where Nickelodeon, after a certain time of the day, would turn into a teenager channel that played like maybe Sabrina the College Years and a couple of other things.
Yeah.
I think it was Trouble. I think what's very interesting about this episode is actually a culmination of everything we've ever done.
Yeah, true.
Best
All the
TV
big
shows.
episodes.
It's best, like, you know, also like pre-internet
Schoolyard
toys.
stories, sick day stories,
Mhm.
Art of Being Bored, Saturday morning cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
It's mad when you think back to those days and just the nostalgia gates just open. Like, we have just been rattling off random memories, and it's fucking deadly, man. I fucking love this shit, man. I love when you start talking about things. Like, even me thinking back to just knocking over for someone, and then say if I knocked in for my friends and there was a few of us were out, then we'd say, do you want to play Tip the Can?
Mm-hmm.
And Tip the Can was like hide and seek, basically. And you go up to like the lampposts, so one of the lampposts, someone would be on, and then you'd have to go and hide, and they'd be like 1, 2. They count up to 20 and they'd be like, ready or not, here I come. And everyone was like hiding in like all the people's gardens on the road, and you'd be like, you'd have to run over to the pole and hold the pole and say, Tip the Can, I see Keith over behind Angela's wheelie bins in her front garden. And if I said where you were, you had to come out and you were caught. And that's just what we did. Like,
dude, we had fucked up games in school. Like, everything just got someone like really hurt in the games we had, right? Because it was like, basically we were in like, there was a school like a yard up high and a yard down low, but they were just tarmac. They were just a square with tarmac.
Yes,
we used to play. We used to play a game called like Bull Through or something, where basically
British Bulldog.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Is that where like
British
you just had to
Bulldog.
run from one side to the other and just bash through people, and people with shirts were being torn off on the floor, like without fail someone was going home after any one of those games. What was it called, did you say again?
Yeah. British Bulldog. So what we used to have, what we used to have was everyone would be standing in a line up at the wall, right, and someone would be in the middle of the field, and that person would be like, British Bulldog 1, 2, 3. I call Keith, and you'd have to try and run past me, and I would try with all my might to absolutely fucking destroy you. Like, I would be like goring you, spearing you, like drop kicking you to try and stop you from getting past.
Oh man!
And if you got past, you were safe, and if you didn't, then you were on with me, I think.
Which is kind of pretty much like looking back at now, it's like Infection in Halo, where like, you know, you get one person, they become a zombie. Do you know, like it's zombies, right? Like you catch one person, they become part of the team, and then the last kid is the last lone survivor running away.
And there was games like red light, green light, stop. We'd play curbs, which is you'd stand on one side of the road, I'd stand on the other side of the road, and we'd throw a ball, and it has to hit the curb, so in between the curb, and bounce back to my side.
Wall ball.
And if it bounced, what's it called?
Wall ball.
No, we called it curbs because we played against the curb.
Is that is it squash with the football?
Well, we'd use a football, yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like,
we didn't have a wall. We had just the curb.
Jesus,
so
tough times.
Couldn't afford walls back then. They were only built for sitting on.
There was no walls pre-internet. You hear me?
And then you do Nick Knocks, which is knocking on someone's door and running away.
Can we just go back to wall ball for a second? I just want to make sure it's the same game. Someone kicks the ball, it can't go above the curb or you lose a point, and has to bounce back to the other person and they kick it against the curb, and vice versa.
No, we would throw it. We'd throw it,
we
didn't kick it.
So we had a game called wall ball that was really fun, where like would mark a line on the wall like really low down. So you had to kick the ball, like you'd have to have like, you know, kick the ball underneath the line, it would bounce back to the other person, they kick it, and if it goes above the line you get a point. It's kind of like squash, but you're kicking it with the ball. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That sounds,
I used to fucking love that. Love it. Mm-hmm.
I love playing curbs, man. We used to have over the car wins. So if someone was driving past and you threw it over the car and you got the curb, you won the game. Over the car wins, you used to say. But you know what I was also thinking about, man? Like, do you remember, like, and it's going to play very much into the retro rumours, like, do you remember people talking about movies that were coming out, games were coming out? Did you see this? Did you see that movie? Did you hear that song? And just the not knowing. of what someone was talking about. I recently only finished playing through Metal Gear Solid 1, okay, on the PS5, and I started Metal Gear Solid 2 last night. Actually played about an hour of it. I can remember hearing about Metal Gear Solid 2 from my friends, and then I remember my friend Graham saying, do you want to come around and watch the intro in my house? And I was like, oh my god. And I can remember we walked around to his house, went in, sat in his front room, turned on the PlayStation, and I can remember watching. Have you played Metal Gear Solid?
I played the I played the intro of 2, and like Kojima was always a cinematic masterpiece. It's like a movie, like.
Oh, Keith, I could not recommend it enough. I got the collection of 1, 2 and 3 on the PS5.
Yeah. Well, Mark the Mill lent me his one, and I did an Evolution of Metal Gear Solid series on Kick, where I played on Monday I played 1, on Wednesday I played 2, and then I did 3 on Friday or whatever.
And have you played through them all, like, or just
not yet? It was just an introductory series where I wanted to compare and contrast them very quickly on how they looked through an evolution of several years.
So cinematic. It's incredible, isn't it? It's like you're playing a movie.
You need to play Death Stranding, man. That's Kojima's latest one.
I'm fairly sure I have it downloaded because it's on the PS Plus now. Because I'm Modern Gamer Ireland now. I'm not Retro Gamer
as my
Ireland.
intro said, because when we started off this podcast, Nisha got me into CRTs and retro gaming. I always liked retro gaming, but I was like, nah, I might as well play it on a 4K TV. And now you're the opposite. Like, we've infected each other, where Nisha's going around with an iPhone 16, a 4K TV and a PS5, and I hate to tell you, but a Super Nintendo is thrown under his bed somewhere with fucking jizz stains on it.
I'm such a like, I fucking love my PS5, man. I got the PS Plus
Betray.
I fucking love the PS5, but I'd strongly recommend playing through fully Metal Gear Solids. But to get back again, I remember going round to Graham's, sitting on the floor in his front room. I can remember he had like a blue couch. I can remember he had like a dark wooden cabinet in the room. Like, this picture is ingrained in my head, and I can remember seeing that Snake running across the bridge in the camouflage, flinging the fucking rain cover off, and like bungee jumping off the bridge and landing down onto the thing, and the lightning going around him as the camouflage breaks, and oh my god, like, that fucking blew my mind, man. And then I can remember the excitement of trying to tell people about it, and just people being like, what are you talking about? Like, I remember like going around trying to like tell me brother or tell me man, they're like, what are you talking about? What are you fucking talking about? They're like, you should see this game, and your man runs and he jumps off the bridge, and then there's Mel, and
Daddy, look at me, I'm going to do a jump parkour, Daddy, watch as I jump off a step. It's like the same thing,
man.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, do you remember that?
I do, but I remember it so much more because, like, this again, like, I realized, you sent me a message being like, oh, let's do a podcast about time before the internet. And I was like, we could do a whole podcast on the time before the internet. And now I'm realizing our podcast is about the times before the internet, because going back to video game magazines, the way I used to absorb information was through magazines. Do you know what I mean? So like, I remember specifically, I think the thing I was most excited for of all time is if you go back to Pokemania of 99 and 2000, there was, when the first Pokemon movie came out, there was a fucking sly part in the introductory of that movie where we saw the second gen Pokemon. It was Fan or something, or one of the elephant ones fighting Bulbasaur.
Yes.
And I remember I was like, what the fuck is that? Yeah. We knew 151 for what seemed like all our lives, and then there was this new fucker coming down, part of this new crew, and we're like, you better get out of my shit, you know what I mean? But anyway... So watched that movie, loved it, and I remember Pokemon Gold and Silver. This was back in the days where, again, because we weren't connected so much by the internet was obviously out in 99, but we didn't have access to it, nor was it, it didn't really exist. Like, it existed, but not something we used. The most I used it for was like downloading Super Saiyan 5 pictures of Goku that took a half an hour to download them. I used to go down and like, boop, boop, very slowly. But yeah, Pokemon Gold and Silver, like learning about that in just magazines and just staring at a photo. I used to just stare at the photo. I used to read it, stare at the photo. Same with game manuals, coming home, we talked about this at length. But just that, like, your imagination takes over. And I think this is what was a big part of it. You imagined what games would be. You weren't shown a trailer. You couldn't look it up. You would imagine what the game is based on 4 or 5 images. Hence... my disappointment of thinking that Pokemon Stadium was actually a 3D Pokemon game, because I fused Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium together, and my memory created it. So it was like, that was just like, I just have that so ingrained. I loved magazines, man. Like growing up, like that's all you had, and like,
man,
So good.
Fucking yesterday I was reading an Edge magazine that Harry gave me a few magazines,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about the Nintendo 64 before it comes out, and they still call it the Ultra 64.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about an event that took place where they first demonstrated the Ultra 64, and there's an article about Super Mario 64, and they have like pre-release images, and you can see it, and I like reading the articles, man, it blew my mind. But it also had a section where they picked 10 games, and they even talk about Zelda 64, man. They call it Zelda 64.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like Zelda at all. And another thing which I thought was very interesting was they talk, so there's like Kirby, Star Fox 64, or Lilac Wars as it was called over here. A few different games they talk about. They talk about GoldenEye 007. And I think it's funny how they, even before GoldenEye is out, right, they're talking about, this is looking like it's going to be a good game. Mm-hmm. This looks like it's very well made. It's made by Rare. The screenshots look next level. And they talk about how, like, what game was it they were talking about? It was Mario, right? They're talking about Mario 64, and they're talking about the sweeping 3D and how the world is so big. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny to think back now about how this huge jump of like graphics and the people, like, imagine reading that magazine and reading Zelda 64 and seeing those images.
But those games still blow my mind. So like I still feel the weight of, like, I still think Mario 64 is this like big adventure. Like, I really do. I still think it's like great. I think as well the biggest thing that's popping into my mind there when you're talking about, you know, reviews. Obviously there's a thing where everything's kind of spoiled now. That's something that didn't happen in the pre-internet. You know, now if you want to play a game, there's 20 million people streaming it, there's trailers, there's ads, there's TVs. Actually, there's less ads now really for games than there ever was, I would say, on TV. But, you know, because everyone knows you're using YouTube, advertise it to the gamers on YouTube or whatever.
True.
But I think the biggest and greatest thing about pre-internet was there wasn't stupid pricks fucking spreading stupid fucking negativity about anything someone likes something. So if someone likes something, they're like, you're shit, you shouldn't like this. Obviously you might get a little bit of like playground fucking whatever, but just like living blissfully unaware, because people just, once they feel they can have a voice to write bad things, people want to write bad things. Like, you look at the state of something like Twitter, where it's just a cesspool of negative echo chambers, and the worst thing about that is it's not that it nearly upsets the people who they're saying you shouldn't like something. It enforces people that the more bad things I say, the more likes I get. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever it is. And it creates this weird, bad mental health narrative of an echo chamber.
It does.
Of all the assholes joining up and just talking shit for no reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why your brain shouldn't be connected to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, your brain should not be connected to that at all. Do you know?
Like, I've, the last few months in particular, I've really embraced like airplane mode and not looking at my phone and trying to, because like everyone else, I'm a slave to it like everyone else, and I'm hooked on it. But I've really embraced like putting my phone down, not looking at my phone, especially on weekends when I have, you know, my time with my family. And like I do it all the time now, where I'll just leave my phone at home on airplane mode, so nobody can contact me. Like, it's like, if it was that important, they'd find a way, but otherwise it's like I'm just taking time off and just sitting there. And like, it's mad the amount of times that I might like pick it up and I'm like, what am I doing? There's nothing here.
It's
the last while
it's an addiction response just to like pick it up. Or anytime you're in an uncomfortable social environment, you reach for your phone. Do you know what I mean? You automatically go to be connected to be disconnected from your present moment and be reconnected to some fake internet moment. And
I'm trying to undo that the last while, and I feel like I'm doing an okay job at it. But one thing I did what I do like is watching, like, you know, stuff on YouTube at night time, which I quite enjoy, when, you know, everyone's in bed and I can just watch some like video game reviews or movie reviews or whatever I want to watch. But I watched something, and you're talking about how apparently Facebook and Instagram have said that they're going to introduce just AI profiles. They're just going to flood, like, apparently like 60%. No, I could be way wrong. I don't know. I don't really care. Like, about 60% of people online are AI robots or bots. But they're going to create ones that are going to, they're going to create ones that are, now again, I could be totally wrong here, but that are going to start interacting with people, which is very odd, because
I suppose it's like already happening though. Like, I get so many bot messages every day.
But people who are making negative things are going to start feeling like they have a platform, and it's going to heighten their senses of the negativity they're spreading. And
it's heightening bad mental health, basically, is what it is. It's just like, here's like anti-mental health tablet, and here's a robot that's going to fucking make you believe your own shit. Do you know what I mean?
Now, it's also, and I always say this, if it wasn't for social media, me and you wouldn't be friends, and we wouldn't be sitting here talking. It can be a good thing. I suppose it's all about balance, isn't it?
But I think maybe that's a good idea, right? Because maybe we could set homework for our listeners, right? And maybe we could maybe we could do like an homework for us, not just for our listeners, but like maybe you can monitor it, because we talked throughout this podcast, you know, like video game magazines are a really lovely way to, you know, when you're reading something physical, your mind doesn't have the same thing as when it's been bombarded with notifications or YouTube, or, you know, it's a different space. It just is. You don't feel like you're being drained like you do. So I think it'd be really interesting for people to remember what it was like pre-internet. Do you remember what it was like when you didn't have WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, different emails, Yahoo, Google, Gmail, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, like all of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it'll be really interesting. But you can still enjoy your passions and your hobbies. Like, I'm not saying you don't play a video game. Like, read. You know, I thought it was really nice when Harry was like, I'll actually read a review of an old game and then I'll go out and try and find it. Like, maybe instead of picking something on Netflix, why don't you go out for the laugh with your family and find a €2 DVD somewhere and pick it up and bring it home? Or just like as a social experiment, I suppose you could say it, you know? Try and live a few days. Obviously, you'll have work and stuff you can't avoid. But like in your free time, when you know you could, I think it would be really cool to, you know, you can listen to this episode as a radio show, you can listen to old episodes, plug Press Any Button to Continue pre-internet on the internet.
I always think a telltale thing to do is, can you watch a movie and not look at your phone? I think that's a good sign, because I can't even have my phone in my pocket. If I can feel it on my person, it's annoying me. I have to put my phone under a pillow.
Tempting you. Yeah.
Like and if it's gone. So when I watch movies, like, I never look at my phone now when I'm watching movies. Never. Because it takes me out of the movie as well. I want to get real into something that I'm watching. And I notice as soon as, like, say if I'm watching some episodes of Dragon Ball, right, I'll do the same thing. And then maybe like get to a point where I'm like, it's 10 o'clock, I might just check and see if anyone's texted me. As soon as I do that, my concentration's gone. Completely gone. And I've picked up my phone 15 times in the last 2 minutes. Do you know what I find a very handy one that I've started doing is I delete the apps off my phone, but then I sit down at my computer if I need to look at them or do something for work. So in other words, like, I deleted Twitter off my phone, Instagram, and then what I do is, because, you know, you just doom scroll on different things, and particularly Twitter, I think is like probably the worst and most toxic one you could be on by far. And then just like, but, you know, I have it for work. I have to put posts for my stream and stuff like that. And of course,
Twitter was also the reason I got to make contact with the people I did to get to where I am. So I can't completely ignore it. But I find that a really good halfway, like, you know, I check it for work, or I look at it because if it's work orientated, you know, and I can check my messages, I have a time in the day where I sit down to look at it, and then I'm away from it.
But make sure you download Spotify, you download Apple, you rate the show 5 stars, you share it with your friends on all the social media platforms. Press any button to continue is back. Episode 51. Go fucking
We're not releasing episode 2 until we have 135 stars, right? I'll sit here for 2 years if I have to, all right? Season 6, episode 1, it's all you're getting, all right? We don't want your sick money. We just want your forced 5-star reviews.
It's real funny how...
Also, you can check us out at patreon.com/press any button to continue now, reopening at this time of recording. Thank you so much.
It's funny how we can sit here and talk about them, but then, like, I also think they're great as well. And it's, again, it's the only reason we've met. You know, we wouldn't have met each other if it wasn't for Instagram.
Sure, I wouldn't have jacked off half as much if it wasn't for the internet, so I have a lot to thank for it, you know what I mean?
But if we go away from the social media things, like, again, thinking back to it, isn't it wild to think that there was a time where you just, like, woke up and you just existed? You didn't have anything to do.
You remember this goes back to just being a kid. Like, you wake up, what would you do in bed? You wouldn't be on your phone. You'd get up. You have more motivation to get up out of the fucking bed.
Yeah.
And then you'd probably go in the car with your parents or go to the shop or something. You wouldn't be on your phone. You'd just be looking out the window. Then you go to the shop, get your stuff. You come home, maybe watch some TV, maybe play a game. You'd be out more, doing more things.
Go downstairs and, like, I remember I used to go down and make cereal. And I used to put a hell of a lot of sugar on my cereal. Like, I would have Rice Krispies with like about 4 tablespoons of sugar. Like, you couldn't even see the Rice Krispies. It was fucking disgraceful. And I just sit down in the sitting room and turn on the telly and just sit there and watch, and maybe like my brother would come in, or maybe someone would knock over, and or maybe I'd go up, and I used to do this all the time as well. I remember going up and like looking through like my NES and my Super Nintendo games, say when before the N64 came out, and I'd just be like, fucking no fucking games here, and I'd have like 4 or 5 games, and I'd just start playing something, and then I'd just play, or else you just play with your toys. We're just playing with your toys, man.
Yeah.
And just fucking...
I had Dragon Ball toys that I was obsessed with, man. When I got my hand on a Dragon Ball toy, it changed my life. I'd play for hours with it. I had a Vegeta with the Saiyan Space Pod. It was an actual pod that opened up and you put him in, and used to fly around with him, and I'd pretend I was going on planets, and he'd go like on all the adventures or whatever. Vegeta being Vegeta, he probably killed some people, but do you know what else is crazy? The fact that you wouldn't have a phone taking a shit, or you wouldn't have a phone eating your cereal, so you'd read the back of the cereal box, you'd be reading the ingredients of whatever was on the thing. You'd just be like, you'd know everything about the ingredients of your hand soap.
I did it yesterday. I was on airplane mode all yesterday. I had to use the toilet. I was reading the back of some shea body butter thing that was sitting on
shea body butter. Come on, shea body butter.
But that's what I did, man. And it was
does
nice,
it make
man.
great lube? Sure, it doesn't.
Like,
the old shea body butter now. It's not the best. It's not the best at all.
No, I wouldn't recommend it. But you have to try these things, man. You have to try these things. But
just be careful what you're trying, though. You know, just as a disclaimer, just don't be trying everything. Do you know what I mean? You might have to go to the hospital.
Yes, true. But like,
President Button does not take any incriminating damages from anyone who has burnt their willy jacking off with Shay's butter bitter.
Isn't it funny how it was such like I like the way as you've mentioned about the swing of a pendulum, how things go one way and come back, how we have gone from no internet to Facebook taking over the world, and then Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, and it seems like it's swinging back. Like, a lot of things are coming into trends of no phones, you know, like even say musicians banning phones from their gigs and stuff like that. And I think it's really cool to see that swing of the pendulum coming back to people disconnecting and finding joy in
I
other
think,
things in life.
I think it will to an extent. Like, I think it depends on the age as well, and I think it depends on depression, and I think it depends on a lot of different things. I think it's going to be interesting. I do think I would love to know, actually, for people who listen to it, and I'd put it in as like, I'd be interested in reading it next week, if anyone tries to put their phone in airplane mode for one day. And maybe I'll do it too. I'll put myself in. I'll put it on for a whole day, and I'll just see how I feel and what I do, and I'll report back to you. I'll do a little social experiment, and we'll do it. Now, like, I'm not the worst, but I'm not good either. Do you know what I mean? So I think that'll be an interesting one. And I'd love to hear our listeners, like, whether it was shit, whether you said it was the worst thing ever. I don't mean, like, I'm not trying to push an agenda. I'm just curious. Do you know what I mean? Like, how it made you feel. Because I think for a lot of people, it make them feel really bad because they might be sitting with their feelings for the first time. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be distracted, so you could be, you know, for some people that might be very intense. Do you know what I mean? And for other people, it might be a relief. You know, like, so it could be very interesting from an emotional point of view, because, you know, our phones, more so than the internet. Like, if the internet was only on a PC, you know, I think that would be the ideal middle ground, but that's what we grew up with, and that might be very biased with what we grew up with. Do you know, if the internet was just available at a spot you went to rather than your phone's connected to the world all the time, but that could be a very...
I remember that. Having to go to, like, internet cafes. I remember going to...
long ago, like...
I remember going to Thailand in my early 20s, and I remember seeing people playing PS2s at the side of the road, just sitting there outside an internet cafe. And I remember having to log in to check my Bebo. Paying.
For those of you who don't know, Bebo... was it Irish specific? I think it was. Or was it Irish and English maybe? Nah, might have just been a UK Ireland type thing. But it was a social media site. I thought it was. It seemed very feckin'... It felt like
Bebo
that.
and MySpace were the things, weren't they? We see, that's because... Here's an interesting thing, Keith. You thought it was Ireland only because we weren't connected to the whole world at that point.
Yes, that's true.
The whole world could have been on it.
That's very true. Very true. I don't disagree with that at all.
But airplane mode's a beautiful thing. Also, I'm just going to say, that's just my thing. I don't give a fuck what anyone else does. You do you. This is just what I
Yeah,
enjoy
but unless
doing.
you fucking rate this podcast 135 stars by tomorrow, you'll lose your home. the pressing button to continue. Taxmen are coming.
Thanks. So, how are you feeling? Now that we have...
A little bit horny, to be honest. Fucking like
That's fair.
it's
What's
9:30 at night. I'm usually fucking on my second wank at this point, so I'm getting a little edgy. Do you know what I mean? I need to get my phone. Connect me to the internet, please, quickly.
But it's man, I really enjoyed that. Just reminiscing about just random old things. It's like it's such a joy, man. And it's even and I think it's funny, like you were saying when we were talking about a podcast that's life before the internet, and I can remember that, like talking about that Metal Gear Solid, seeing that opening scene, and being so excited, and that that I used to get this excitement that I was so excited to have like a lump in my throat and I couldn't talk. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so excited, and I get this like I can't talk, and I can remember that, and I swear to God, man, that like through my 20s that disappeared, okay, and into my like 30s, and it wasn't until season 1 of this podcast I remember it came back, we were talking about something, and it was that nostalgia, and I was like, it was like a moment for me. I remember going, fucking hell, I haven't experienced that level of giddy excitement, and it's all about like thinking back to that time of simplicity. And I know too much nostalgia can be maybe unhealthy, but I think we kind of I also do enjoy reminiscing and thinking back to those old things.
I think it's almost healthy in the way it's like you can look back to I did an episode of the Bizarre Cast, Richard's podcast, and I think the episode was
cool,
like looking back to move forward. Was we had an episode about that, and I think if you can look back and retain a feeling of what it felt to be connected to the present moment rather than disconnected to the world of the internet and voices that really don't matter. Like, outside your friends and your family and people around you, do you know what I mean? Like, those voices shouldn't matter. And a lot of them are just kind of made for the sake of it anyway. So I think if you can look to nostalgia to reorientate yourself of what made you feel happy in the day, and sometimes some of it's just childhood wonder. But, like, you can be like, maybe I do need to read more. Maybe I do need to, set time away to put that away and enjoy my hobbies more. Like, maybe I should be painting again more instead of doom scrolling. Like, if you can look back to things you loved and things that got you excited and you can kind of balance it, I think then it's always worth looking back and talking about it.
True. I'm very excited to get other people's opinions, like on what you were saying, like, because I totally agree with everything you just said there, and I think it'll be interesting to think, will people agree with us, or will they say, you're full of shit, like I'm perfectly fine with my phone and I'm which is cool. I'd love to get other people's opinions on.
I think with our demographic we'll probably get a lot of people agreeing, but I think it's a very different. That's why I put homework on top of it, because I don't think anyone would be in chat being like, I think we should look at it, because most people are of a similar age who listen to this podcast or older, so like I think it's more interesting to say try it and give us your experience rather than what are your thoughts before you try it, because I think the only way in our age category we'll really know is if we say, right, I'll do one day airplane mode experiment and then come back to us and we can read it next week.
Yeah.
Well, next week, I mean, sorry, when I get 135-star fucking reviews, lads.
You'll get like Dinner Dog or Garl put their phones in airplane mode, and it'll be like an episode, or it'll be like one of the what's it called, the fucking the Hangover movies. They'll wake up the next day in the middle of Thailand going, what happened? Gar, what happened?
Wouldn't it be interesting if we, oh my God, if like in the description of the episode we were like, we would like you to download this episode to listen to offline. Like, wouldn't it be interesting if like this was like somehow, if we could like prep the audience of the experiment so you can listen to this while you're doing the experiment to think about your feelings of it,
Yeah. Well, maybe people can get back to us and tell us if they tried, and if they did, how did it go? Because personally, I fucking love doing it. It's nice to have the balance, Say goodbye. I suppose we'll leave it there for press any button to continue. It was beautiful being back with our life before the internet. And do us a favour, turn your phone off. But before you turn it off, before you go into airplane mode, just download Spotify if you haven't already, and that's how you're listening, and Apple, and rate it 5 stars.
/Patreon, press any button to continue. Now back open, baby. We taking money again, motherfuckers.
Share it with everyone. And yeah, it's good to be home. It's nice to be home. How do you feel before we do go?
Yeah.
That's how you feel?
Yeah. I
feel like people are going to want answers, and we just won't give it to them.
Wait, what you? Okay, well, sorry, you want an answer from me? How do I feel?
Actually,
we just record. Wait, hang on. No, you shut your mouth. It's not the Nisha show no more. Okay, you've been talking about your arsehole for the last while. That's just to let you know as well, in case you're watching Dragon Ball Daima, we have been doing a podcast on that. You can check it out. It's called Daima in the Rough, under the Pad TC logo. Yeah, I don't know, just in the very unlikely chance you are watching it. And yeah, no, it feels good. It's been a while. It was really nice to get into
5 months, man. It's only been 5 months
since we last.
4 and a bit.
Since what?
Since our last since episode 50.
That is ages, though.
Is it though? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I suppose it is. Like, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're looking forward to it.
True. It's nice to be back. Sorry we were gone, but sure, here we are.
Yeah, and just to let you know, I did have to re-record that intro 3 times. So I think the second one I probably said it the best, but you know what? By the third time it was gobbledygook in my brain. Okay, so just so you know the pain and suffering I went through, guys. I love you lots like jelly tots, and bye.
Bye.
Bye.